Gentlemen, this first guest on the show, we're so happy to welcome him back and always so grateful for his time. He is an absolutely amazing UFC fighter. I believe right now in the top 10 or 11, and should be probably even top 5, and will be coming up soon. We're talking about the man they call El Terror, Jimmie Rivera. Welcome back to the show, Jimmie.
What's up, man? How you guys doing? Thank you for that. That was very nice.
You're welcome. Well, it's
that.
true, man. It's true. You know you've been impressing for many years, and you're coming off a great win off another friend of our show, Cody Stamen, and that was a great fight. And you're on track here to do some great things. You got a big fight coming up. I've always been impressed with how you fight and how you conduct yourself, man. And so let's talk Pedro Munoz, man. That's been a guy that I think has been on your radar for a little while. Am I right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I did actually. Him and I did fight my second UFC fight in 2015, I think it was.
Oh.
So it's kind of like I feel like one of those things where there's a couple people I haven't fought yet, but there's going to be people that kind of show up back on the radar and fight again, just because being in the game that long and fighting a lot of the top opponents. If you look at the top 10, I fought half of them at least.
Yeah, that's right. So you did fight. I think you did win that fight then early on, right?
Yeah, I fought him in Brazil in his hometown, and that was quite an experience. I tell you, if you're not a Brazilian and you're American going to Brazil, it's quite an experience. I'm not a fan of you.
Yeah, no, I can remember. I remember when Mark Coleman mentioned that. I think he was interviewed when Mark Kerr was fighting in 1996 or something like that. No, or 7. I think it was 97. And they were talking to him, and he gave a lot of credit to the Brazilian fans. But he said, "Man, yeah," he said, you want to have your friends with you." And he said, "But a lot of tough guys in Brazil." He said, "I wouldn't want to try to fight my way home from Brazil, if there weren't any planes or anything." But yeah, they support their fighters a lot, and they're a very passionate people, aren't they?
Yeah, super.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a good victory of yours, and that was early on. And 5 years ago, I'm sure you've both changed and you've both improved. But does it? I mean, I know you don't really need a mental edge, man. You're an experienced, top quality, top level fighter. So I know you're not trying to look for any sort of mental advantage, because you just do you, and you do that successfully. But when you have a victory over someone, does it give you a little bit of a mental advantage, or does that only work if it's within like a year or two, and it doesn't really count if it's 5 years ago? What are your thoughts, and how do you look at that fight? How do you think most fighters look at a fight where they beat a guy, let's say, like 5 years ago?
You know what? I don't even I think about I guess me mentally is more like I'm fighting this guy for the first time.
Right.
I don't really think about it. I'm not sure if he thinks about it, but I'm more like, it's like I'm fighting this guy for the first time. And I think 5 years is a long time to wait to fight again. So, I mean, a lot of things change from that time. So, improvement wise, I mean, and what you do and stuff like that. So I think you grow as a fighter, and especially experience. So it's a lot different.
Yeah, absolutely. And is he ranked a couple spots ahead of you, or do you know? And I know there's often different various rankings.
I think I'm either 9 or 10, and he's either like 7 or 8 or something like that.
Right.
I'm not really sure. Can't really tell you because I don't have it in front of me right now.
Right, but it's really close, and that's good, because people like to fight people that are ranked close to them, not behind them. But sometimes you don't have any choice. But this is definitely a fight that will help the winner for sure vault you up into even the higher echelon and upper echelon than where you are right now. And hey, you know what? I wanna throw a statement from the fan, because we have fans. We're interactive now, Jimmie, which we really weren't as much before. But we have a guy named Neil, the security, who wanted to say, "Hey, Jimmie, as a fellow Puerto Rican, I'll be rooting for you, champ."
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem. So Neil, just you saw Jimmie appreciates you there, and yeah, it's going to be a really good fight. And what do you do in a fight like this, man, where you've got another top-ranked contender fight? Let me rephrase that. I know that obviously getting in and out, taking as little damage as possible is ideal. I know probably every single fighter, if given that opportunity, would take it. I don't know. There are some fighters, maybe I think Justin Gaethje, that might take a knockdown, drag out war. I don't know. Not that other fighters don't want that, but when you're up against someone really good like you are, is there anything fun about that? I know in like a game of tennis or a game of chess or something where you're not being hit and thrown and taking damage, a lot of them say that it is a lot of fun to go up against someone really good. Is there any fun in going up against someone really good like yourself that stimulates you, or is it something that most fighters kind of don't really enjoy doing that much because they realize it's probably going to be a long night?
Um, you know, uh, I guess, like I said, it's like one of those things that, like, like when I'm training for a fight, I'm focused on what he's done in the past and what I should avoid and what's good and what should I take him out of his comfort zone and stuff like that. I think finding someone, I think everybody's good, especially in the UFC. You get there. It's not an easy road to get there. And with that said, I mean, it's sometimes it does become like a chess game, and the things you want to do, you have to set them up. And I mean, it's a lot of strategy to it. And I think when it comes down to it, it's like I know some fighters say like, yeah, I don't watch my guy at all, or I don't watch footage. I think it's important to do that, watch footage, and like get to know who and what you're dealing with, and have a preparation, have a couple of game plans going in.
Makes sense. What do you see that's changed about him over the years? And I'm sure probably it's some improvement. It seems like he's gotten better as you have as years have gone by. But if you had to point something out about him that you think maybe he's improved, I know most fighters don't love necessarily to speak super highly about their opponents, but if I could ask you, what do you think maybe he's improved on, or something that you feel that Pedro Munoz is really good at?
Yeah, I think all in all, it's experience. He's fought a lot of the same guys I fought and some others that haven't. And just with that experience to bring that to the table, to the octagon when we fight, I think that's something he's obviously improved on. And having that experience and going 5 rounds and going, 3 rounds and fighting these top guys, you really learn and you go back. And I think at least he goes back and watches and see what he can do better and see what he did that was good. I think that whole experience thing is something that he brings to the table.
And what do you think you've improved most, let's say, in the last 5 years?
Um, I I'm gonna have to go with the same thing, just experience, fighting wise. Like being a seasoned fighter instead of being brand new, and especially fighting these top ranked guys. A couple of years ago, now I'm fighting them, and I've been in it. And I've been a top guy, and having that experience it's always a big deal, I think.
Absolutely. So another question: when you're looking at footage of your opponent, and this I'm curious about. I haven't heard this question really asked by very many people, if any. Do you feel that there's merit in looking at the person's wins more than losses, or do you feel that it's the opposite of that, or what do you think could be giving what different kind of insight, let's say, to you when you're looking at an opponent's fights? Give me a little rundown of like what you can glean from both, or how important watching one or the other is.
You want to see mannerisms, you want to see things they do, and it doesn't matter if they win or lose. You want to watch them in every fight because you want to be able to see, every fighter has a style and different styles, and you want to see how they match up with styles. You want to see how they handle pressure, how they put pressure, all the fundamentals in the sport. So you want to see what they do and what they lean towards.
Makes sense. Do you think there are any coaches that might have unusual game plans, like only showing their fighters their opponents' losses, or only showing their fighters their opponents' wins? Could either of those be viable, or do you think they would both not be a good idea, in your opinion?
I mean, I think it's a good idea to watch everything. You know what I mean? I think coaches have their own style, and when it comes down to it, I think it really comes to the coach and the fighters' relationship and what they've been through and how long they've been together and what they know it's going to benefit them.
Makes sense. I would guess if a coach maybe felt that his fighter was stressed out about a matchup or not confident or whatever, they could just show him the losses of his opponent or something. You never know. I
Yeah.
guess it depends. I mean, this really is a mental game, isn't it, Jimmie? I mean, I know that you know that, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that, because people say that, but I think a lot of fans don't necessarily understand what that means. I mean, they maybe understand that it means you got to have confidence, but what does it mean a little bit when fighters say, some fighters will say it's like this fight game is like 80 or 90% mental. Can you give us a little bit of perspective on what that means?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say to, in layman's terms, like the fighter has to go into the fight and be confident in their training camp, for instance, and to be confident in their game plans and confident of doing what they're going to do in the fight. I think fighting, as physical as it is, mental, and if you don't have that mental, I know people, and not saying any names, I just know people in general that who beat themselves before they even get in the fight, and some are like, they beat themselves because they don't think they can perform, or they don't think they can do what they are supposed to do, or they just overthink their opponent, and that will not help you in the fight game at all. You got to believe in yourself, and you got to go out there and you got to let go. I mean, you go into a fight, there's the same chances you have getting knocked out or hurt. It's the same chances he has.
Very, very true. So this fight is going to be February 13th, and it's going to be on the undercard of Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns, man. That is going to be a great card. There's also some other great fights on there, and so you are part of a great card. Does that excite you in any way, personally, like knowing that there's a lot of other great fights on there, and because there'll be more eyes on the card, or it'll be more fun for
Yeah.
you, or yeah, what are your feelings?
Yeah, it's always fun. It's always fun to be on a stat card, but sometimes you get cards that are like unbelievable, and some people don't know people's names. And I think every card has a potential to do really well, and I think it comes to like matchups and styles and stuff like that. But I don't think, watching like as a, I mean, if I was a fan, or even as me being, in it, you get some cards that are like, wow, that was the whole card. Like, I didn't know some of the guys, but there was exciting fights. There were some cool things, that happened in the fight, or knockouts, whatever it might be. And or even some no names that are going against some big names, and all of a sudden those no names people like get their win and get a win in a crazy way. And I think it's almost valuable to have every, to watch every, if you're a fan, watch every fight, because you'll get your money's worth.
Absolutely. And speaking of which, I know Mike Tyson was a great student of the game, and I've always been an advocate of being a student of the game, and it sounds like you are. You do watch other MMA fights, not just your own.
Yeah, I always do. You know what I mean? It's always interesting to watch it. And even like watching Mike Tyson when he fought recently,
Yeah.
Roy Jones, and it was just interesting to watch. I mean, even me not trying to pick sides or anything like that, but I felt like watching that fight with Mike Tyson, I felt like, it was supposed to be like more of a glorified sparring match, but it looked like he even held back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you hear Jones talking about his body shots. Those body shots look ruthless,
Yeah.
Those take a toll on people, and it was an interesting, it was a good fight, and it was cool to see it.
Absolutely. And, I, as a little bit of an older guy myself, love to see something like that happen. It's so rare. And granted, maybe they weren't as fast as they were, years ago. But I think that, a lot of guys, that are younger don't realize it. Just because you're old and you can't necessarily compete with the top professionals who are 20 years younger than you doesn't mean you can fight. I think you probably know that. A lot of guys, realize that if your dad's 50 or 55, can he train and fight a high-level professional? Probably not. But can your dad probably beat up a bunch of guys walking down the street that are 25 years old? If he's got some skills, he can. And,
Yeah.
right? And I think that Mike and Roy definitely showed some great skills there. Mike, yeah, looks like he might have been holding back a bit, but they looked amazing for guys in their 50s, didn't they?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, and what's the best thing is, like, have Mike Tyson going against a young guy, and you have Mike Tyson going against someone his age,
Right.
and you get something like that. It makes an interesting fight. You know, you get like someone, someone in that age bracket fighting someone young. You're like, oh, is it going to be a good fight? Are you going to really enjoy it?
Right.
Like you don't really know what's going to happen when you get two guys, same age field. And I'm not going to lie to you, the fighting, as you get older, is a hard thing to keep doing. So the fact that they were able to get in there and do it, so you got to give them a lot of respect.
Without a doubt. I don't think we all ever thought we'd see any sort of old timers game in combat sports. There always was in basketball and in baseball, right? And even in hockey once in a while. I don't know if you remember back when you were a kid, they would have old timers games. And, but in combat sports, yeah, you got to give it up to those guys for doing that. I remember on the panel, the Mauro Ronaldo, the good Canadian MMA commentator, asked Sugar Ray Leonard if we might be seeing him in there, and he's 65 years old, I think, or 64, and he said, "Only if I can fight you." And I thought that was perfect, because even though Ronaldo Moro is like 49 or 50, you're asking a 64-year-old guy when he's getting in there. That at some point you gotta get serious. And I think Leonard's answer was perfect. If he can fight Moro, he'll be in there. But that was some great action. Let me ask you one other question that just came to my mind. Have you ever met any guy that fits this description? And I've heard this for many years in combat sports. A guy who can beat everyone in the gym but doesn't win professional fights.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to ask for any names, but what do you think that is, man? I mean,
Mental. It's a whole mental thing.
Yeah.
Guys are really comfortable in the training facility, and then they go out there. It's a whole different atmosphere, and you kind of got to just put it to the side, and you're in there with someone else, and you got to do your thing. But yeah, I've known people like that, and you just go like, oh man, why don't you just go like you are in the gym? You would just kill everybody.
Yeah. It's just maybe like a mental block. And I've heard once in a while some of these guys can get over it, but sometimes they can't. But you never know. I mean, maybe for their own preservation, it worked out good. It turned, because some fighters end up having like a weak blood vessel in their brain, or other various heart problems that were not detected. And you never know. Maybe these guys, God's looking over them to not have them get in there that much. But if they keep on losing, then you hate to see it continue. But yeah, you really have to have that kind of a confidence, because it really is kind of an adrenaline dump. Speaking of which, when after you fought for several years with huge audiences, thousands and thousands of fans, what's it like for you to fight with no fans? Can you give me any insight that maybe we haven't heard? And I know we've heard a lot out there, like you get to hear the other guy's coach, or you get to hear it's really quiet, you can hear your coach clearly. Are there any interesting things other than that you found that makes it kind of different when you're walking down the aisle with nobody screaming, and you're in there fighting and throwing punches and stuff and taking people down with nobody screaming?
Yeah, I mean, it's some people depend on the fans. Me, I it's just easier. Like they say, you can hear the coaches, you have more of a conversation. It's almost now. It's like, yeah, you're in and you're trying to kill each other, but it's like you could hear what they're saying. You could hear your coaches. You can. It almost right now what it's like with the whole pandemic and how the fights are going on. It's almost like you are training. You know what I mean? You're training, but now it's like, real training. Like you're gonna get bumped up and bruised bad and hurt, so you got to be on your game. But it's nice to be able to hear and talk. And when I was in Abu Dhabi and fought, it was great to have that silence where you could hear your coach clearly, instead of you sometimes struggling like, what did he say? Excuse me, what did he say? I'm like, So
Absolutely.
that's a nice concept.
Absolutely. Is your fight on the 13th going to be in Abu Dhabi as well, or is that back in Vegas?
No, it's in Vegas.
Okay. And have you fought in Vegas during this pandemic, or only in Abu Dhabi?
Just Abu Dhabi.
So that should be interesting. You're going to go. I'm sure now the Apex. I think before the pandemic, they weren't really having anyone fight there except for in the Ultimate Fighter, and so I don't believe you fought at the Las Vegas Apex or UFC Apex yet, have you?
No, not yet. So I'm looking forward to it. But I mean, from Abu Dhabi and that, I mean, Abu Dhabi the arena was a bit bigger, but as far as I know in my knowledge, but I mean, it's not much difference, and it's it's nice in a way that, you know, the UFC is doing all these precautions and doing all these things and keeping the fights going. It's really a great thing.
Absolutely. So you're still fighting out of your school, Tiger Schulman, right?
Yeah, still out of Team Tiger Show and still train with them full time, and fighting, you know, training, doing the camp with them, and fighting out of them.
Who's over there helping you for this camp?
We got all the pros, so we have all the pros and the amateurs and everybody training, and you know, like training partners like Julio Arce, Shane Burgos, training with them, Mike Trezano, the other guys that are in there that are amateurs or are pros, but unfortunately right now the local circuit and stuff going on, it's quite hard because they're not having fights as much because of the whole COVID thing.
Right. Very, very true. So a win over Munoz puts you really up there in a very competitive bantamweight picture. I'd like to get your opinion on some of the logjam that's right above you here. You got Peter Yan as the champ, and I think is a fight set with Aljo? It is, I think.
Yeah, in March.
In March. Okay. And so you also have Corey Sandhagen in the picture, having beaten Marlon Moraes. You also have still Marlon Moraes, and then is there and then Jose Aldo. And I think, why is there someone? So Aldo, I was thinking of someone else.
You have Frankie and Corey going to fight beginning of February.
Okay.
And then you have Aldo in there with Rob Font.
Right.
And is Cody Garbrandt still in the rankings or no?
I think he might be, and so he's up there too. So there's all kinds of people. So I know you don't want to look past, and you won't look past your opponent Pedro Munoz, but assuming you do get by him, who would be your choice to fight next in that group that we just discussed?
Obviously, it would always be the champ and fight, or whoever wins between Aljamain and Jan. But I guess if I had to really pick, it'd be great to fight either Aldo or Frankie. You know, fight another legend. That'd be awesome.
Absolutely. And you train over there in the East Coast, not far away from where Aljo and Frankie and those guys train with Mark Henry, right? Have you ever had any crossover and gone over and checked out their school or trained together or anything?
I did train with a bit Frankie getting ready for the Faber fight, and Marlon a little bit, and that's pretty much it. I mean, I've gone to, you know, Long Island MMA, and most of the time I was there, Sterling wasn't there, so I would train with like Bermudez and a couple other guys there. But since the whole pandemic thing, there hasn't been any really cross training with any other teams and stuff like that in general. So those are some of the guys I got to train with. And it's different. You know, you have now Frankie dropping down. So he walks around, I'm going to say 150, let's say, and he was fighting that 45 and 55. So it's crazy to see him, who's like maybe an inch shorter than me, not even, to fight up at 145, even 155. Sometimes I think, how the hell did he do it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Just an amazing guy, amazing legend. Any predictions on those two fights? Let's go Frankie versus Corey first. Any thoughts on that?
You know what? I honestly, nothing against Frankie, but he has to get past that reach.
Yeah.
And if he get past that reach and especially get the takedown, I think he wins that fight. If Corey can stop the takedown and keep him at bay and use that reach he has, and he's got some very nice setups with his striking, it could be Corey. Like I said, MMA could go either way, but that's like a tough fight, I think, for both of them, depending on where they're at style wise and their skills wrestling. I mean, you didn't really get to see a lot of wrestling when Corey and Aljamain Sterling fought.
Yeah. It
was a very quick fight. I was surprised, and it looked like he was too relaxed going into that fight.
I agree.
And it happened so quick, and it was like the fight was over. I was like, wow. I'm like, I didn't see that coming.
No, I don't think anyone did. And then Peter Yan, he just announced that he's training somewhere here in the U.S. Did you read that article? Was it American Top Team, or you remember where Peter Yan said all of a sudden he's training somewhere here in the U.S.?
No, I didn't. I didn't even hear about that article at all. But I guess that'd be kind of different for him because he's so used to, I think he's always out in Thailand and Tiger Muay Thai training. So I think that might be a big change for him.
Yeah,
for this camp.
It would be interesting. But what do you think of that fight with Aljo, man? I personally have nothing against Yan, but I just think Aljo, I don't see where Yan beats Aljo in that fight. But what's your thought on that? I'd love to hear your analysis.
I think you watch Aljo. He's been doing a lot, keeping good distance and using his wrestling. I mean, if he could get Jan down, I think, or keep him in that clinch, I think it's going to be, a tough fight. But I think he's going to have to engage a little more. And, he's the champ. Jan's the champ, and you got to be able to, I think, to beat the champ standing. So I think he'll have to engage a little more and be able to, beat him stand up and or on the ground, depending on what his game plan is. I mean, that's a tough fight. I think more for Aljo, but I think if he could get past those strikes and take him down, I think he's got it in the bag. But again, it's a great style matchup, and interesting to see what happens.
Absolutely. Other big fights coming up. I'd love to get your opinion on, if I could. Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier, number 2. They fought, I think, like 6 years ago or 5 years ago, something like that. Just kind of or similar time, I think, that you had fought against Munoz. But that was at 145. I think Dustin was just dead at that weight. And I think there's a big difference. I'd really like your opinion as a high-level professional fighter, because I've been a fan for a long time and I've trained striking and grappling. But basically no one knows, I think, as much as you guys that are in the thick of it. So let me ask you this. My feeling is, I'm thinking that Dustin's hands are better. He's a lot more comfortable at 155. He's a lot more patient. I think he's not going to go into that fight as angry as he was at being clowned so badly by Conor McGregor, because now everyone knows Conor does that, and Conor might not even do it. And I think that, that those things lead me to believe that, and some other people to believe that Dustin has a very good chance of being in that fight. But then you have the other side who say Conor's going to smoke him. He's just way too accurate. He's still got a reach advantage. He's just, he's in his head, whatever. What's your thought from your position as a high-level UFC fighter?
My thought is that, Dustin is a good boxer. Conor is really good at keeping his range, and he's got a good left hand and left leg kick. I mean, I think what it comes down to is that if Dustin keeps his boxing, especially the way he was with Gaethje, I think he could win that fight. But if Conor's controlling the distance the whole time, he's going to win. And then if you see, if he overthrows a right hand and doesn't come back with a hook or something, I think Conor's going to catch him with that left hand. He's got a very good left hand, straight left. So I think that's a big. If I was Dustin, I'd be working on always coming back after the cross. And I think it's going to be definitely a striking match the whole time. So It's going to be on the feet the whole time. And I think with that said, I think it could go either way. It just depends on when he goes in there, how he does. I was surprised to see how he was with Gaethje, Dustin, and then with Khabib. He wasn't as his striking looked great.
Yeah.
In Gaethje, but when he went with Khabib, it was very more like, maybe he was more worried about the takedown, but his punches weren't as crisp and brought back compared to he was with Gaethje. He was a little sloppy. So, if you see that Dustin with Gaethje, it's going to be a tough fight.
Yeah, absolutely. If Dustin could get on top, I think his jiu-jitsu is superior to Conor's. A lot of people would say far superior to Conor's, although Conor's jiu-jitsu is not as bad as some people think. But Dustin definitely would have the advantage there. It's just interesting that, you've got some of these really good jiu-jitsu guys who've got some striking, but they're not really great offensive wrestlers. And, a lot of people, think, well, what if Dustin just tried to, work on his offensive wrestling and his takedowns for 6 months? But you just don't get it. You don't get that good at wrestling, I think, in 6 months. And I think probably even if Dustin wanted to make this match with Conor about him shooting takedowns, I don't think Dustin can get to that level of wrestling. And I don't think he's going to even try. Do you?
No, I think it's going to be more on the feet, but you never know what their game plan is or what they see that we don't see or what their coaches see. I really feel like the whole match is going to be a striking match. And if he looks crisp like he was with Gaethje, I think it's going to be a good striking match.
Makes sense. And the winner of that, do you think they should make that person the new champion? Do you think they should make the winner of whoever Gaethje fights the new champion? What do you think, and kind of assuming that Khabib is not going to be in the picture?
I mean, does Gaethje have a fight right now or no?
I don't think so.
I mean, you got Chandler versus Oliveira, and you got Conor and Dustin. I would assume that maybe the winners of both will fight for the belt, and then from there, if Khabib doesn't come back, you know, the winners will both fight for the belt, and then maybe Gaethje's next in line for the shot. I don't know. Or does Gaethje need to win a fight in order to get the shot? That's kind of like up to the UFC, I think, when it comes down to it.
You know, I think they changed it, and they've got Chandler against Dan Hooker. I may be wrong, but
yeah, no, you're right. It's against Dan Hooker. Was it with Charles Oliveira? No, right?
And so Charles Oliveira, maybe Gaethje is with Charles Oliveira. Maybe that fight is set. I know that if it is, it's not going to be next month, but I think they're talking about that. I think that's what they're hoping for, but it's nothing shown online as of yet, as far as we can see. But I guess if that happens, then the winner of those two, you know, possibly could fight each other. But I hope.
I think when it comes down to that, I think it's like if Conor wins, then he'll fight maybe the winner of
Oliveira.
I think it'll be almost like his choice, either Chandler or Hooker or Gaethje and Oliveira if they're fighting. But if Dustin wins, I could see more of a chance of whoever's the winner of. If Charles wins, I think he'll fight him, or I could see more of the winner of. If Dustin wins, the winner of Hooker and Chandler, just because, you know, if Gaethje wins and Dustin wins, they already fought and beat each other. I think it will go fall more lines of who wins with Hooker and Chandler. But I think it all comes to as performance.
Yeah.
You know, who has the best performance out of the three.
Yeah.
And then you got two that have really good performances, and those two are going to fight. I think if Conor wins, I think that becomes a big set off and a big business move and good business move for the UFC to have him pick, kind of almost pick who they'll pick who they want him to fight, who's going to sell him more. I mean, I can see it being huge having, you know, if Chandler wins against Hooker, Chandler and Conor fighting. I see that's a huge thing. Or could be Gaethje and Conor. I mean, you know, I don't know. I think it's all like performance.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate your breakdown and analysis, man. That means a lot. And I really want to thank you for jumping on, Jimmie. I'm going to let you get back to your night. You got a lot of training to do. You're fighting on February the 13th against Pedro Munoz in Las Vegas on the undercard of Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns. Man, can't wait to see another amazing performance out of El Terror, Jimmie Rivera. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us again, brother.
No problem. Thank you, and have a great night.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.